Picture this. It's 70 million years ago. The air smells like sulfur and danger. A Tyrannosaurus Rex is charging at full speed, shaking the earth with every step. And standing directly in its path isn't a superhero. It isn't a soldier. And it isn't a scientist. It's Barnaby, a 20-pound terrier mix with one floppy ear and an addiction to cheddar cheese. You might be wondering, how does a dog who chases his own tail end up breaking the space-time continuum? Well, most great discoveries are made by accident. But this one was made because of a tennis ball. Stay tuned, because for the next 10 minutes, we are going on a journey through time that science never predicted. This is the story of the goodest boy in history and the mistake that almost ended the universe. To understand the accident, we have to meet the owner, Professor Alistair Sterling, a genius to some, a crackpot to his neighbors. He had spent 40 years building the Chronosgate, a machine designed to send organic matter through the fourth dimension. And then there was Barnaby. Barnaby didn't care about physics. Barnaby cared about two things. The mailman, who was clearly a government spy, and the red ball of destiny. On this specific Tuesday, the professor had finished the prototype. It wasn't a DeLorean. It looked more like a giant, glowing hamster wheel connected to a server rack. To test the machine, the professor needed a non-organic test subject. He placed a metal sphere inside the chamber. But to Barnaby, that wasn't a calibration weight. That was the ultimate ball, the forbidden fruit. Barnaby waited. The professor turned to grab his clipboard. Pause. Opportunity strikes. Barnaby bolted. He didn't just run. He launched himself into the Chronosgate, snatching the metal sphere from the pedestal. But as his paws hit the platform, he slipped on a loose wire. His collar, specifically his metal ID tag, made contact with the main conductor coil. No more dog. No more ball. Just a smoking collar tag spinning on the floor. Barnaby had just become the world's first chrononaut, and he had no idea how to drive. Barnaby landed with a thud in soft mud. The air was hot and wet, like a bathroom after a shower. His first thought was, this is a very big park. He began to sniff. The smells here were ancient. Rotting vegetation, wet earth, and meat. Massive amounts of meat. Barnaby trotted forward, tail wagging. He found a bone, a really big bone. It was attached to a triceratops carcass. He was in paradise. Until the ground shook. A T-Rex, the size of a double-decker bus, stepped through the trees. Now Barnaby was a terrier. In his mind, he was a lion slayer. He saw this 60-foot lizard and decided to do what he always did to the mailman. He barked. A sharp, squeaky yip. The T-Rex paused. It looked down, confused by this tiny, noisy fluff ball. The T-Rex roared, blowing Barnaby's fur back like he was in a wind tunnel. That's when Barnaby realized this was not the mailman. Barnaby grabbed his metal sphere and ran. The only reason he survived is that he was too small to bite. He zigzagged through the ferns. Meanwhile, back in the lab, the professor was frantically typing code. He had a lock on Barnaby's biosignature. He hit the recall button. Just as the T-Rex's jaws snapped shut, Barnaby vanished. But the professor's machine was overheating. The recall didn't bring him home. It just bounced him somewhere else. Barnaby tumbled out of the vortex and rolled down a sand dune. He shook the sand out of his ears. It was hot. Dry tea. He was in ancient Egypt, roughly 2500 BC. Now, history buffs know that ancient Egyptians loved cats. Cats were sacred. Dogs? They were working animals. But nobody had ever seen a golden doodle terrier mix appear out of a lightning bolt from the sky. Barnaby, thirsty and hot, trotted up to a high priest. He dropped the metal sphere at the priest's sandals and did the only trick he knew. He sat and offered a paw. The priest gasped. "Anubis! In a new form!" they shouted. Within an hour, Barnaby was not a lost pet. He was a deity. They carried him on a golden litter. They fanned him with palm leaves. This was the life Barnaby felt he always deserved. Unlimited belly rubs. Fresh cuts of lamb. But there was a problem. The cats. The temple cats knew he was a fraud. They hissed. And Barnaby, forgetting he was a god, chased them. He knocked over vases. He unraveled mummies. He turned the sacred temple into a chaotic playground. The high priest realized that this god was just a chaos demon. The guards drew their spears. Barnaby, sensing the vibe had shifted, grabbed his metal sphere. Suddenly, the air crackled with static. The professor was trying again. He was gone again, leaving behind a legend of the barking god that would confuse archaeologists for centuries. The third jump didn't land him in the past. It threw him forward. The year 2150. Barnaby landed on cold steel. The air smelled like ozone and synthetic oil. This world was scary. No smells of nature. No people walking around. Just machines. Barnaby was tired. He was hungry. He missed his bed. He missed the professor. He found a puddle of water and drank. He curled up under a neon sign that buzzed overhead. For the first time, the adventure wasn't fun. Then he heard a clicking sound. A cyberhound, a security bot, turned the corner. It scanned Barnaby. Target: unauthorized biological entity. K. The robot charged. Barnaby was exhausted. But he was a good boy. And good boys don't give up. He barked, but his voice was weak. Back in 2024. The professor bypassed the safety protocols. "Come on, Barnaby," he yelled. He overloaded the grid, blowing out the power in 3 city blocks to create a stable wormhole. In the future, a portal opened above Barnaby's head. It was a swirling vortex of wind, but it was 10 feet in the air, too high to jump. The cyberhound lunged. Barnaby scrambled up a pile of scrap metal. The portal was shrinking. He had to time this perfectly. He remembered the tennis ball training. K. On the prize. Bang! The lab exploded with light. A sonic boom shattered the windows. And there, in the center of the smoking machine, sat Barnaby. He was covered in prehistoric mud, Egyptian sand, and futuristic soot. He looked at the professor. The professor ran over, tears in his eyes, checking him for injuries. "You crazy mutt," the professor cried. "You traveled 5,000 years. Barnaby wagged his tail. He dropped the metal sphere. And then he dropped one more thing he had picked up along the way. A solid gold collar from the pharaoh's palace. The professor looked at the gold. He looked at the destroyed lab equipment that cost millions of dollars. He looked back at the gold. "Well," he said, "that should cover the repairs." Barnaby retired from time travel that day. He spends his time chasing regular tennis balls now. But sometimes, when the thunder rolls, he doesn't hide under the bed. He stands tall, looking at the sky, remembering the time he stared down a T-Rex and won. If your dog had a time machine, where or when do you think they would go? To the age of giant steaks, or maybe to chase the first cat in history? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed Barnaby's journey, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that lie just on the edge of impossible. Thanks for watching.